So this weekend we anticipate the festival of Shavuot, the festival of weeks that begins on Sunday evening and which celebrates the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, the festival of Revelation. And I've been thinking about the theme of our Tikkun Leil Shavuot, our so-called all-night study session. Until quite recently, it used to last until 6 a.m. the following morning. But since the arrival of Rabbi Igor's little one and my growing inability to manage sleep deprivation, we now only go as far as 1 a.m. Although you will have noticed that we have extended the evening earlier, starting with our visit this year to the London Central Mosque and St. John's Wood Church at 4:30 on Sunday afternoon. And if you'd like to join us for that, we invite you to meet us here at 4 p.m. on Sunday. In preparation for our visit and for the various sessions which will occur on Sunday night, I wonder if I can share with you a few brief thoughts about the theme which we've chosen for our Tikkun. We took the subject from a phrase used by the anonymous prophet of the exile, Deutero-Isaiah, in chapter 42:6, which you'll see up on the slide now. Ani Adonai kiraticha v'tzedek v'achazek b'yadecha v'etzorecha v'etenecha livrit am le'or goyim. I, the Eternal One, in my righteousness have summoned you, and I have grasped you by your hand. I created you and appointed you a covenant people, a light of nations, le'or goyim, a light of nations. What does that phrase mean? This is the subject of our Tikkun. The idea of covenant, a covenant people, is, I think, understood. We're inheritors of a dual covenant, one that God made with Abraham and one made between Israel and God at Mount Sinai. But this enigmatic phrase, light of nations, which is the literal translation, le'or, for a light of nations, isn't necessarily so clear. The traditional commentators understood the phrase, a light of nations, to refer to Israel's role and mission towards other people. Malbim, the acronym for Meir Leibush Ben Yechiel Michal Visser, put this succinctly in his commentary to the verse, a light of nations. These nations refer to idolaters. You, Israel, the Jewish people, must illuminate for them your faith so that they do not walk in darkness and come to recognize the oneness of the Eternal One. Rabbi David Kimchi, known as Radak, in the 12th and 13th centuries, goes further. To paraphrase, he says that the world continues to exist because of us, the Jewish people. The Jewish people, he says, sustain the world. The covenant itself will be a light to the nations. As it says in Isaiah, the nations will go by your light. The light refers to the Torah that goes out of Zion. And there will be two ways, continuing to quote from Radak, two ways in which Israel will sustain the nations of the world. One is that there will be peace among all the nations because of the Jewish people, who in time to come will be ruled by a messianic king who will, and he quotes from the Torah here, speak words of peace to the nations, whose swords will be beaten into plowshares. The second way is that the other nations will keep the 7 Noahide laws. These Noahide laws are the laws derived from the book of Genesis and stated in the Talmud. And they include establishing courts of judgment, the prohibition against cursing the name of God, the prohibition of idol worship, the prohibition against forbidden sexual relations, the prohibition of bloodshed, the prohibition of robbery, and the prohibition against eating a limb from a living animal. So these are the laws that the Talmud sees as all humanity keeping, required to keep. And Maimonides, in the 12th century, includes the Noahide laws in his Mishneh Torah, his code of Jewish law, and he adds this sentence: a non-Jewish person who accepts the 7 commandments and observes them scrupulously is a righteous non-Jew and will have a portion in the world to come. In the late 18th and early 19th century, the reformers shifted the emphasis of this phrase from light of nations to light to the nations, or legoyim instead of leor goyim, thus playing down the significance of the mitzvot, the commandments, and exalting the ethical dimension of Judaism. The concept of the chosenness of the Jewish people carried, they said, risks of superiority, a hierarchy in which Jews see themselves as moral exemplars. Progressive Judaism preferred the idea of mission rather than the chosenness of the Jewish people. Judaism, said these early reformers, would become a universal ethical culture open to everyone. As Dr. David Ariel writes in his book, What Do Jews Believe?, the mission people concept places the responsibility on Israel both to live up to the ethical demands of the covenant and to disseminate these ethical teachings to the world. We are not chosen by God, says Ariel, but we choose to embrace what he calls a social gospel. Jews have a higher calling to solve the injustices of modern society. But this still begs a question. What makes us believe that Jews have this higher calling? What about the rest of the world? What about other faiths? I prefer the theology of the Jewish feminist writer and scholar Judith Plaskow, who argues that the complex and evolving concept of chosenness must be replaced with the far less dramatic distinctness. Jewish communities, she says, are distinct and distinctive, shaped by gender, by place of dispersion, by language, by history, by interaction with other cultures. Distinctness should be understood not in terms of hierarchical differentiation, but in terms of part and whole. We should not deny our complex particularity as individuals or communities, because that is to diminish our connection to God. Let's see if I can get the next one. This is Judith Plaskow, a Jewish community that defines itself by walling itself off from others, without and within, marshals strength at its boundaries to the detriment of its center. She is arguing for particularity in our complex wholeness in order to create our Jewish communities and our Jewish selves. Chosenness can cut off our contact with others. Distinctiveness opens itself to difference, and it is here that we find the God of Israel and the God of each and every people. Plaskow is probably one of the foremost and influential scholars of our age as a theologian and feminist. And I think it is with Judith Plaskow that liberal Judaism has found a way to embrace an ethic of universalism, inclusivity, and pluralism, eschewing hierarchical difference or any sense of superiority, while at the same time finding enrichment and spiritual nourishment from our distinctive history, language, culture, observances, and ethical monotheism. Managing that tension between our universalist ethic and the distinctive ways we live our lives and have contributed to the well-being of the world is complex and often painful, and we see this in our own world. But for all the anguish it brings us, it is also precious to us as Jews, and somehow we need to hold on to its delicate balance, maintaining our strength as a community and always remaining open to others. So we come now towards the end of the 49 period of counting the Omer. And unless you're doing it every day on your own, this probably will be the last time that we do it together as a community. So we turn to page 578 to read the passage from Leviticus 23, which instructs us to count the 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot, when a sheaf, an omer of grain, is to be brought as an offering, so that the day after the 7th week will make it 50 days. And the festival of Shavuot in the Bible is only known as an agricultural festival, as the festival of the first fruits. It's not known as the festival of the giving of the Torah until really an intertestamental period, quite late, probably in the Greek period, when Shavuot is then linked with this momentous event of the giving of the Torah. In observance of that tradition, we count the days of the early harvest season of ancient Israel from Pesach till Shavuot, and so symbolically walk once more the road from Egypt to Mount Sinai, from liberty to law, from freedom to responsibility. And please join with me in reciting the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al sefirat haomer. Hayom shmona v'arba'im yom, shehem shisha shavuot v'shisha yamim la'omer. This is the 48th day, making 6 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. So really, although probably it's still just about Friday, it's not quite Shabbat, I can see outside, but tomorrow, from tonight, from sunset tonight, will be the 48th day, Sunday the 49th, and then Monday, Sunday night, Monday, the 50th day, Shavuot.